Ask Reddit. What is the most disturbing thing you've heard said casually? How there's gonna be a gang fight, and my neighbors wanted to apologize for noise beforehand. Not the premeditated gang fight, and the warning in advance. 16-year-old kid on meth at a youth homeless shelter I was at talked about how his dad beat his mom to death. He spoke like he was talking about any other old thing. I've not felt so bad for someone before then. He was given no chance at life, and he was just a kid. This is why I get so frustrated when I hear people say homeless people chose that life or just don't want to work. How can someone with that kind of trauma be expected to do just as well in life as someone who grew up with a loving family and a safe home? Not only all of that, but leaving the life behind. The system fails the homeless at every turn, and it is set to work against them. The programs that are out there aren't nearly enough to truly help them rehabilitate to rejoin society. Someone once said, "If I went missing, I think it would take days for anyone to notice." They laughed, but it hit me hard. Like, how many people feel that way? Because of depression, I fell off the face of the earth, and it took over 9 months before anyone in my family noticed. So yeah, we're definitely here. It's a real struggle, especially with depressive episodes when my mind is telling me nobody cares and it's actually confirmed. Listening to my American grandpa just causally drop horrific things he saw when he fought in World War II at random. Like, you ask him about farm life, and he will drop this on you. I hate open pastures. I remember one time I saw 2 Sherman tanks get blown to hell about 100 yards out, and I saw the tank commander jump out on fire only for the Germans to cut him down anyway. That's why I hate open fields. Dude, that's wild, and also kinda interesting that he was able to share the traumatic shit he witnessed or experienced. I had a great uncle who was infantry on the Western Front in World War II and refused to talk about the war at all. Ironically, the only thing he would talk about was how much he hated the French. Also worked closely with a rancher whose father fought infantry in the Korean War and apparently didn't talk about his wartime experience whatsoever. I know the North Koreans put a lot of young teens and kids on the battlefield, so that one's pretty understandable. Met a fellow teacher who was around 67 for coffee, and he casually said, "When I was 30, I was sleeping with a load of 13-year-olds. They were just throwing themselves at me." I left shortly after, walked back to the school, and informed the owner that if this man taught children, I'd quit on principle. Turns out, he had already been banned for pinching a kid's nipple. A brown/reddish thick beard, sorambatic lonely guy, in a church in Barcelona, Spain, praying/talking, "If I kill someone, the voice is going to stop/things going to get better," over and over again, while rocking back and forward in his bench. I used to saw him in the commute for my work all the time, always alone, with one exception when I saw him with someone that could have been his father. What surprised me, always looking like he is carrying the world is his back. I got so affected that if I was not making a lot of money in Barcelona and skyrocketing in my job, I had left the city. I stopped to came back to my house walking and stopped to go to the church. I never forgot him. A really popular football player at my high school, was known for being charismatic, charming, and generally a joy to be around. I was generally introverted and not super social, but even I enjoyed when he was in the room. One day, I overheard him say he killed a kitten by stacking bricks on it, and he was either in an app or a video where there was a meowing noise, not the kitten, but I assume the meowing reminded him of what he had done. He was laughing about it. I'm pretty sure that dude is gonna be in jail one day if he isn't already. I might actually go look him up now. My co-worker saying she would have sex with her son if he wasn't her son SMFH. We had a recording for an international commercial where I work, and my colleague asked me if I've ever been in television. I said, yes, a couple of times, but nothing major HBU. In which she replied with, once, when my best friend was murdered and they tried to catch the killer. I was working at a gas station when I was 17/18. The corporate offices were directly behind us, so they would come and get lunch and snacks from time to time. One man in particular always came to my register. One day, when his wife stepped away to grab something, he casually said to me, "I want to tie you up, throw you in the back of my truck and drive away." It was the creepiest thing anyone had ever said to me, and the way he said it so casually and nonchalant. I quit very quickly after that. New roommate was telling a funny story about her family. All of us were laughing and joking. I asked a simple follow-up. She causally mentioned her brother was in jail for killing their dad with a shotgun and was sincere. It was definitely a record scratch moment. In high school, I walked in on a drug deal in the gym. Kid was pressuring his friend into trying crack. Also, I woke up after surgery once, and my mom told me I had died on the table for a few seconds. That one felt less disturbing, probably because I obviously knew how that turned out, while I still have no idea what happened to those kids in my high school. So he kissed me and it was hot and everything, but I was like, "You're my brother though." I was an elevator operator for a 100-year-old building with a bar. I stopped mid-floors for this. I used to work in criminal defense and was sitting in a private room at my county's courthouse that's also home to the capital city. There were attorneys, IDAs, clerks, and cops in the room, and we were all just chatting. Then a police officer is talking about something he'd done over the weekend, and a DA told him that's illegal. The cop said, "I'm here to enforce the law, not obey it." I just raised my eyebrows like, "Whoa, WTF," and everyone else cackled their freaking butts off. It felt so surreal, and like I'd gone insane. I don't work in law anymore. I struck up a conversation with a pregnant lady at work and said, "So how stoked his baby daddy?" And she replied in a matter-of-fact kind of way, "He was taking too long to decide, so I just stopped taking birth control and didn't tell him." I was like, "Oh, so he's surprised." Not necessarily disturbing, but my 18-year-old adopted daughter totaled her car right after buying it for $8,000, and above what it was worth at a shady lot. Her birth mom took her here. I had nothing to do with the purchase. She was driving with no license or insurance. Right after she totaled it, she said, "Well, at least I don't have to pay those payments anymore." She thought because it was totaled, the debt went away. Having worked in car sales, I am astounded at the number of adults who think that trading or selling a car just cancels the debt, therefore they buy the most expensive vehicle they can afford, believing that they can just trade it in for a newer model in a year. I've even explained rolling negative equity into the new loan, and had people smirk, "Well, if I always trade it and never just sell it, then I never have to pay for the car." Like they are revealing this one simple trick that dealerships don't want you to know. The other day, a student said, "Don't make me kill you." A couple of weeks ago, the same student asked, "Do you want to kill me?" And back in August, another student repeatedly said he wanted to die. They are both 5. The kids are not all right. Walking my dog past a high-profile private boys' school on the last day of the school year, and they were breaking up for summer holidays. Kid about 15 came out with a bunch of his friends, rubbed his hands together and said, "All right, our season." My uncle said my wife and I need to have babies, so there's more white people in the country. My grandpa said my wife's PhD was worthless because therapy was for socialists, and my grandma said God was punishing the country because of the gays. All in the same weekend. We don't talk to that side of the family anymore. "Do you want to go to the again?" A mother yelling at her tantrum-throwing child as he was trying to flop onto the ground, but her partner was holding him up by his arm. I was already miffed at these people for cutting in front of me in line, but then I had to listen to that loveliness for another half hour. I was arguing with a Russian guy who was a US service member for 15 years and supported Russia's war in Ukraine. I pointed out that they were forcing prisoners to go and fight and die in large numbers in death wave attacks. His response was, "What, they're just prisoners." He was attacked relentlessly in chat until he left the server. He mocked Ukrainian deaths and said they staged all the Russian atrocities to make Russia look bad. A lot of Russians swallow the propaganda. I know of a guy, one of the rare independent journalists, who had been writing critical pieces. He has family abroad that begged him to leave, but he wanted to make a change, even though he knew another journalist who had been killed. He left in 2014, after the first Ukrainian invasion by Russia, as people heard he was going to be arrested, as he wrote a critical piece about the war and Putin. A few of his colleagues wrote also fled the country shortly after due to threats. His grandmother was very old, and he called her last year to check in due to her age. Even though he hadn't talked to her in years. She accused him of being a traitor, a Nazi, said super hateful shit about Ukraine, and said he deserved to be shot. What was the most disturbing thing you've heard someone say? Feel free to share in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing for more daily videos.